Hey guys, and welcome to another podcast from QualityShot Football. I've got with myself, Ash, and Josh as well. So two pretty miserable Chelsea fans, myself and Ash, and Josh is a Man United fan who normally we wouldn't make fun of, but this week, because Man United are doing so well, you can see he's got a massive smile on his face. But first of all, Ash and Josh, how are you both doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, man. Very well, thanks, man. Very well. Hope you are too.
All good as well, thanks.
Good. Are you, Ash? Are you really? Well, I'll get to that in a second.
Inside, I'm not.
Yeah, we'll get a bit deeper inside. Well, I guess we can just start off with the news that's come out today, and Josh was the first one to break in, and I'm sure with a very smug look on his face as well. I couldn't see it because it was a message, but I'm sure he was very happy about it. Thomas Tuchel has, I was going to say resigned, but he hasn't really resigned. I think he's been sacked, really. There's always the classic line of parted ways, but we all know what's really happened. So I think he's obviously not been in the favors of new owners, and it was, I think, probably tipped over the edge by yesterday's Champions League result against a team who I think most people would have expected us to win against. And I know a lot of people in the UK probably didn't even know who that team is, and I'm not trying to say it in a rude way, but that's just because if you're a hardcore fan, you know who they are, which Josh probably will, but a lot of people wouldn't know. Dynamo Zagreb, I know because they're so prominent in the Champions League, but I mean, you don't expect Chelsea to lose to them. So a 1-0 loss, and then it just came off the back of that. And as is a lot of sackings nowadays, it's almost like a pretty harsh reaction to a terrible loss. And this seemed like something like that. Ash, I'll get your thoughts first. Firstly, are you happy or sad about Tuchel leaving, being sacked? And how sad were you about the Dynamo Zagreb loss, I guess, as well?
Yeah, no, I'm honestly gutted about Tuchel getting sacked because I felt like he really, after Lampard got sacked, he had some big boots to fill in terms of someone who could build a strong relationship with the fans, and he did that almost instantly because he's just such a charismatic guy, and the way that run in the Champions League in his first season was just incredible. And it just came as a real shock to me. Especially, I think that's the thing with it, this event just shows how quickly things change in football. You know, on our last podcast, right, we were sort of bantering Man U and stuff about their start to the season, and now their situation, their fortunes have changed quite drastically, and I remember saying I was feeling more optimistic about the season, and now suddenly it's like at a real low. So it was really shocking news to me. And although I'm kind of somewhat excited about the potential of the new man who may come in, I really did like Tuchel. I mean, like I think he had such a strong connection to the fans. There's a really good video on social media of his reaction to the banner that was at Stamford Bridge, of him, and not many. You have to be you have to be special to get a banner at Stamford Bridge. And I was just had a real sinking feeling in me for most of today. And the result, yes, it was absolutely awful. I only managed to watch the first half, and I was just in disbelief when Zagreb scored, to be honest, because the amount of space they were giving us in that first 20 minutes, the amount of mistakes they were making, I was like, geez, we could run all over these guys if we could finish. We could have been 4-0 up. And then they scored a great goal on the counter attack, and then there just seems to be a problem with us when we go behind. Bar that West Ham game, we just seem to capitulate. Very disappointing. A long way to go in the Champions League, but it's just very strange times at the club.
Yeah, strange timing as well, because Aubameyang has come in and he was talking, in his his presser when he joined. Oh, yes, I'm really looking forward to linking up with Thomas Tuchel again, and Tuchel obviously has a link with him after managing him at Dortmund in the past, and he's probably thinking, great, I've just come in and first game we lose, and then the manager gets sacked. So probably not a happy bunny. But Josh, from I guess a neutral point of view, or a more neutral point of view, I guess, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, surprising, and I don't know. I mean, is it good for Man United, or is it actually, he was going to continue to fail potentially?
don't know. It's a weird one. I think the last time I was on Quality Shot, I think I asked you both how you felt about Chelsea, because last season it felt like you just dithered a little bit. And I think that we know there were some off the field issues with the ownership. Obviously his divorce. But I do agree with Ash. When I've gone to Stamford Bridge and you see it on the TV, social media, Tuchel had a real connection with the fans. Everybody was united. And it's weird for Chelsea because obviously I don't support the club, but you guys have had managers. It's hard to have that connection, especially when, as he said there, he filled in from Lampard. But this year, I just felt the transfer window was very weird from Chelsea, I have to be honest, in terms of the targets, not finding someone centrally. So I wasn't really surprised with the poor start. And I thought he would probably get the sack due to results, not necessarily the breakdown of communication that's come out, and not in September, not in the first week of September. So I'm surprised in that sense. But then in theory, I thought maybe he's taken this squad as far as he can, which sounds crazy. But if you look at the results, the 4-1 Brentford, there are signs from last year. And then when you come in and you get a new ownership, you get fully backed as well. You get Fofana, you get Aubameyang, and then you still don't see that change. And I just feel with Chelsea offensively, he's not really. Only criticism I can say for Tuchel before this season would be, have Chelsea improved offensively? Werner's left, Lukaku's gone. I never see what the style is with Tuchel. Very good defensively. He's played 5 at the back, very pragmatic, very solid. But he never really kicked on for me. But the sacking, I think it was going to come even now or December. I thought Chelsea were going to struggle. I kind of circled Liverpool and Chelsea as September 18th of a game. If whoever loses that, it's in deep, deep trouble. You see tonight with Liverpool losing 4-1. There's just something odd. When you just look at two squads and two teams where you're like, there's something not right. The players are there and something's not right. So I think he'll get criticised, Bowley, and it's tough for Chelsea fans, but Graham Potter, potentially the manager that's coming in, that's a fantastic new start for the club. Like, really, he's the best manager outside the top 6. He's English. There's a lot of pros. There's obviously some cons. But I feel like that decision was going to be made. If Chelsea won 4 out of 4, beat Tottenham, for example, didn't lose to Southampton last week, we're not having this conversation, are we? But I think results have been bad. And to be honest, you don't want to be like Man United, where the results just nosedive and your season's done. You better get over and done with, which is a shame because he won you the Champions League, won you the Club World Cup. But with all due respect, if there's a club to sack a manager who's won everything, it'll be Chelsea. And I think it speaks volumes about how good Tuchel's been for you guys, because like Ash is saying there, like, you're used to sackings, but it's hurt the fans. He's only been there for 18 months. It's hurtful that he's gone. It's disappointing. Yeah, you're struggling. But I think if you both are honest with yourselves, there's been an issue at Chelsea for a while now. Last couple of months, something's just not right. So I think it's the right choice, maybe not the right timing. But he should definitely deserve to have time to turn it around at least. I personally didn't think he would turn it around, but I think he should have been given time to December. The club could have completely faltered. He didn't owe you guys anything to stay, and he got his targets. I think from that aspect, it's disappointing, but it's business, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, agreed. What's your view on Potter? Because you said obviously, he is, in your opinion, the best manager outside the top 6. I mean, what does he bring? What would he bring to Chelsea?
I think the pros for him is that he's got a clear coaching style. He's hands-on. And I think in this modern day, we've seen with Pep and Klopp, you need to have managers who can coach, talk to players, understand his philosophy very quickly. At Brighton, he has a superb pressing game. He's very competitive when it comes to the big games. He tore United apart. He's torn many teams, many big clubs apart. But not only in the big games, because I think it's easy to turn up for the top 6, but he gets results like Leicester on Sunday consistently, rips West Ham apart a few weeks back. A team like Chelsea struggled on the weekend, just for example. He's very, very good at recruitment, working with his team. The only negatives I would say for Potter would be the fact that, listen, top 6 club is massive. Chelsea are one of the biggest clubs in the world, let alone the Premier League. It's a different kettle of fish. One thing I liked about Tuchel from the outside is he's so charismatic. The way he used to talk in press conferences, he bleeds confidence. And Chelsea have a big player power issue for a number of years. And if that doesn't get sorted out, I'm worried about that. And like, for example, in his first game's Fulham, and then it's a Champions League tie. He's no experience at Champions League. Now, I'm sure Chelsea will qualify and whatnot, but Tuchel under Chelsea would be very deadly in the knockout rounds. So I think from that aspect, that's a negative. But he's got to learn somehow. Do you know what I mean? It's like everybody starts sometime. And I think with Bowley, he wants to build a long-term project. We've heard this before under Abramovich. I think Potter is the most candidate, brings fear amongst the rival fans, if I'll say, the other top 6, because if he gets it right, we know he's going to get backed. Look at Bowley's just spent how much money on Tuchel targets and sacked him, so he's going to get backed. If he really is the guy that everybody says he is, or at least has produced at Brighton, I think he'll be successful at Chelsea if he's given time. And even if he's not, I think what's quite interesting, because I think Carragher said today, it's like, why would you go there? Why would you go to Chelsea? But think about it. If you're him, you go into one of the best teams in the world. You have that in your CV. Where, Sarri got sacked. Mourinho's been sacked. It doesn't stop you getting big jobs after. Tuchel might go to Madrid next. Tuchel might go somewhere. So for Potter, it's kind of entering that new elite status as a manager. But I think it's exciting if you get it right. And look, you've got really good youngsters, and James, and even Cucurella's obviously come from Brighton. Mason Mount and Gallagher. A lot of those players need coaching. Let's be honest, they need a bit more emphasis. And Potter's probably the right man. I think he is.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. I agree. I think Carragher's comments on, why would you go to Chelsea is a little bit, well, I think it's a little bit rich, to be fair, because why wouldn't you go to Chelsea in the sense, as you said, because yes, okay, you might get sacked quickly, but if you've had that experience, as you said, and that step up to the highest level, then it does then open doors, right, to other clubs. You say, okay, well, he's had experience in the Champions League. He's had experience managing top players. And, okay, maybe he wasn't there for a huge amount of time, but maybe his style suits us. So, and as you said, Sarri and all these other coaches, even that have come in, you have to start somewhere. So I don't see why he wouldn't come in. And also there's a lot of players that need coaching, younger players as well, as you mentioned. So I think it would be an interesting matchup. And I think it would be an interesting partnership in the sense that we haven't really had many English managers since Abramovich took over. We've had Lampard, of course, but apart from that, I mean, we've really looked abroad to find the finest talent, really, to bring over and then get the job done and kind of win titles and, win cups straight away. And I wonder whether this is the move to say, well, he's looking at it more from a long-term perspective. I mean, it could go in the way of like a David Moyes-esque, appointment where it just doesn't work out. But I mean, I'm happy, and I'm happy to find out if that makes sense. But we'll see. Ash, what's your thoughts on Graham Potter? I mean, are you a fan? Would you want Chelsea to go for someone else? Like, I don't know, Pochettino's in talks as well, or let's say in talks, but in the running, as is Zinedine Zidane as well.
Well, yeah, but I mean, on the point of like, why wouldn't he go to Chelsea? I always think like that's probably, if you're a manager, that's almost like a must-take job, because why not pit yourself, against, it's such a challenge for managers, right, to actually last at Chelsea. So if you're hungry, you definitely look to the Chelsea job as something, you almost want to say, I want to be that guy, who lasted at Chelsea, or who at least certainly, won a lot of trophies there. So I think it's definitely what Potter's been working towards. I think it was at Ostersund's and Swansea, then Brighton, worked wonders with Brighton. So it's a sort of a natural step for him to get one of those big jobs. And then I think what I really like about him is just like how he's developed so many players in the years that he's been Brighton manager. I look at the players like Bissouma, Trossard, Pascal Gross, Cucurella, and many more. And I'd say probably one of my criticisms of Tuchel is, as Josh mentioned, probably his attacking, coaching of attacking, I don't think was certainly up to the standard of like a Pep or a Klopp. And then B, I think we didn't see too many players kind of level up necessarily at Chelsea, bar maybe Rudiger, James, and maybe Mount. I don't think we've seen necessarily those players really have sort of a rapid rise that some of these Brighton players have had. So I'm excited to see how he'd work with people like Havertz, someone like Gallagher, who's had a kind of a shaky start this season after a really good season last season. Maybe Potter could sort of work the trick with him. So they'd definitely be my first choice. I've been just looking at Brighton this season thinking, wow, like what a manager, what a squad. Just doing fantastically well. So I'd be very much excited to have Potter on board. Pochettino is obviously a great manager. There's no denying that. But and I was the name Zidane obviously brings a lot of excitement. And he has such a good record with Real. But yeah, Potter is definitely the one who stood out to me. So I'd be happy if we did get him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's more of a longer term approach. I think Zidane would be an interesting one, but he doesn't really have an affinity with Chelsea, so I don't know how. I don't know quite how it would work. And at Real, he was obviously a coach there for the B side, if I'm not mistaken, for quite a few years. So he knew the infrastructure, he knew the players, he knew how the club was run. Obviously, played there as well. At Chelsea, I feel like you're getting thrown in at the deep end in a club that you don't probably well, maybe he does, but I would imagine he doesn't have that know-how of how the club is run, and he probably wants things done a certain way. I'm not quite sure whether he'll get that exactly how he'd like at Chelsea. But in saying that, I mean, Pep was at Barcelona and did a similar thing, and obviously has come to City and done some good things, and Bayern as well. Yes, the Champions League is missing, but apart from the Champions League, which is a big thing, he has done good things and big things at those clubs. So I guess we'll see who Chelsea end up with, and I'm just hoping that they move quickly. I'm hoping they move quickly and we don't have this kind of big gap now between managers. Let's get someone in, get them, acclimatized quickly, so we can then start focusing on the season, because there's going to be this whole circus around who we're going to get, and it's just going to distract players and the club, and it's never good, never good. Let's talk about Man United then, because Josh, I mean, since you've last been on, it's gone from doom and gloom, and Ten Hag's going to come in, but you don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive overhaul, and 15 players are going to leave, and it's some players have left, and obviously he's brought in some of his own as well. Martinez and Anthony, and the whole Ronaldo saga as well. What's going on there, and he's was brave and benched him and said, "Okay, this is my best team, and I'm going to use him." But actually, you know what? He's not fully fit. Was the line he used, but he's still very vital. Look, I mean, whatever he's done, of course, there's a story about Ten Hag. After what was it, the Brighton game, he told the players to do a 5K run, and then the players were like, "Oh, what the heck?" And then he said, "I'm gonna do it with you." And then I felt, and there was that kind of like respect earned. I don't know whether that was the turning point, but obviously that's the story that people are going to run with, and it's a fun story, I guess, to quote. But look, there's been a massive turnaround since that Brighton game to suddenly beating Liverpool, beating Arsenal. Like, they've won their last 4 games, I think it is, in a row on the bounce. So, I mean, there has been a massive shift, not just in mentality and momentum, but performance as well from these players, and players who. Fans are saying basically put them in the bin. Now they're suddenly playing extremely well. I mean, Josh, you tell me as a fan what's happened, what's gone on, and you must be a happy man. But I mean, what's been the turnaround? How has it happened so quickly?
I think the first 2 games, Ten Hag was naive. I have to say, I was very surprised in his trusting of McFred. I'm sure you guys have heard of the midfield pair, McTominay and Fred, which frustrates you, not United fans. You talk to many United fans in the summer. If we were offered just one position to improve, just one, defensive mid. And I think starting the season with McFred, not only McFred, but also players like Maguire and Shaw, who've been too used to performing poorly and then playing the next game. And I went to the game against Brighton, open day of the season, and the atmosphere was amazing. Open day of the season, new manager, blah, 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 blah. And the moment that first goal went in, everything just dropped. And you can see it in the players. They were scarred from last year. And I think he took a risk, going on that run after the Brentford game and enjoyed him. But, Liverpool Man United is always going to be a big game. 77,000 people, the rivalry, and Liverpool have their issues, and we took advantage of that. So we built that. And I think the Southampton and Leicester results pleased me a lot, because he just made things simple. He changed the back four. He took Maguire and Shaw out. He brought Malacia in. He brought Martinez in, and he just made it simple. We'll be more pragmatic. We're not going to play from the back. The hair can't play from the back. I'm not going to try and impose myself on you. I'm going to make things simple to my team. And I think everybody's bought into that. People like Varane has wanted opportunities. Delo's wanted opportunities. Sancho wants to make an impact. So I think what he's done, he's got rid of Maguire, Shaw, and Ronaldo. 3 players, I think, who equally have different issues at the club, but feel the pressure every time if they don't perform. And he's taken, the hair not to play out the back as a big deal. All these little things. And then when you get results, quickly, the Premier League's every game every week now. You have 3 games. But what was really pleasing for me was on Sunday where Arsenal played a really good game. They went to Old Trafford, dominated the ball. Didn't have many clear-cut opportunities, but they looked like a team that had been together 3 to 4 years, and we coped with that. And I think what was really good is that when we conceded, we didn't fold. And last year we would have folded, or even this season we saw Brentford and Brighton, we folded. We didn't. We stuck to our guns, got the goal from Rashford, and we kicked on. So I wasn't too happy with him, I'll be honest with you, in the first 2 games. Not to get sacked or anything, but I feel like if I can see, and all of us can see where the issues were, why would you not want to address that? I didn't feel like a centre-back was needed, or a winger, or a right. We needed a centre defensive mid. And credit to him, look, McTominay is not my favourite player, but even in these games, he's performing, and Casemiro's on the bench. So I just think he's just got that respect element from the players, and everybody's buying into it. And I think once you do that, you can go. I think, and also fans are patient. If we lost on Sunday, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, it's but being 4-0 down after 35 minutes, it's Brentford. That's a worry because that shouldn't be happening in any case. You can get beat 2-0, but when you're 4-0 down to Brentford, you're thinking, what's going on here? And at the same time, with the ownership, they have backed him this year. They have given him some money. Anthony's come in, and I don't think if those results came, we would have got Casemiro and Anthony. So he's been backed. He has to produce this year. That's a lot of money that's been spent. I think only Chelsea spent more money this summer. So we have to see results. But I'm very happy just because I think he settled the ship. There's an ethos. There's a settled 11. He's dealt with the big issues really well. Maguire, Ronaldo, even De Gea to a certain degree. And I'm looking forward to games again. I'm looking forward to games again, which is a surprise.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think my dad will say the same thing. He's a massive Man United fan for many years, and he used to just say, I hate watching Man United now, and the glory days of Fergie, and it was just, I remember back in the day when we had, not even back in the day, but it's like recently, when we had Tevez and Berbatov and Rooney and all those Ronaldo, and he's like, what a great team, and now we've got we've got Martial and we've got Rashford, and he's like trying to compare them. He's like these guys, and McFred as well, right? So look, it's been a massive turnaround, no doubt, and I think a player like Eriksen is quite handy to have in there. He obviously opens up passing channels, but it's not just been that. I think Martinez he's brought in and he's trusted him and said, look, you're my guy. And he's led from the front and he's really hit the ground running, which has been great. Malacia has been good at left back. And obviously he's replaced Shaw. And Shaw, I think, as you said, is talented, but has maybe taken for granted the fact that he's just going to get picked because he's always been seen as that guy who is, got a lot of potential. And he was young. I mean, he's not that young anymore, but someone who's going to be in England international and he's going to play a lot of matches for Man United and, at the top level. And I get he's been injured. He's had some bad luck, but also there's fitness issues around him and kind of commitment as well, I think, at times. And so Malacia is in there for like really, really good competition. McTominay is an interesting one because I wonder whether Casemiro will start. Will start. It's just a question of how will he adapt, and I guess it's a question for another podcast when we do see what he's like in the Premier League. But I'm interested to see whether that works out or not. But good to see Sancho and Rashford back in some good form as well. And brave decision because Ronaldo hasn't started anyway a game since that Brighton loss in the Premier League. He's been brought on for like decent chunks, but he's basically said, "Look, my team's winning, so I'm going to change it." So that's intriguing as well, and I wonder what's going to go on with that. That's going to be an ongoing thing, I would imagine. But at least Ronaldo can't complain that Man United aren't losing and being competitive. I guess is the underlying thing, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think the Ronaldo, look, end of the day, he's 37, and he Ten Hag wants to play a fluid line. I think Martial's looked the best he's looked for years. Just can't stay fit. And if you're winning, you can come on for 20 minutes, or you can start Europa League. If United are, let's say for example, again and myself, but are in the top 2, next month, you start to buy into the idea we're going to be back in the Champions League. You know what he's like? He's like, I'm going to play forever. So he doesn't throw his toys out the pram. There's a big Portuguese contingent in the club now. Brazilians are there as well, so everybody speaks Portuguese. Portuguese, and that all helps. And I think at the start he wants to leave. He's very heavily linked to Chelsea. Bowley wanted him. That's a fact. Tuchel blocked that move. Who knows, that move might be moved back in January. I'm not sure. But I think Ronaldo is, and this is credit to Ten Hag. Before you told me 3 weeks ago, I'd be like, just send him, terminate the contract. Now I'm like, listen, he could be an option. We're doing okay. That's what's all about results, I think yeah, we're not playing the most attractive football, but we're the most informed team in the Premier League. And if we beat Palace, that's 5 wins, and we know how hard it's difficult for everybody.
Yeah, agreed. And I guess we can maybe wrap up with some of the Champions League results. And yeah, I mean Liverpool losing 4-1 today, and we can talk about Liverpool, I think, because Arsenal have had a really good run at the start of the season. I know they lost to you guys recently, but I think they'll be okay. They'll challenge for top 4. I think obviously that's maybe throwing a little bit of water onto the flame that was starting to rise about, we're invincibles and they can win the title. And I was a bit like, you guys need to relax. Like, just because you had a good start to the season, it doesn't mean that you're going to win the league. So I think that's kind of dimmed down a little bit. And who knows, like they could still be competitive. I just don't see them winning it. But like, who knows? Maybe they will completely prove me wrong. But I mean, Liverpool, we're seen as being one of the top 2 sides to compete, and they've had a pretty adverse start to the season, losing to Man United as well. Man United seem to be killing off everyone's form as of late. And then Napoli have just like stuffed them 4-1. They are not in a particularly good place this year. And I'm just wondering what's going to happen, because everyone says, after 7 years of Klopp being in charge, he then kind of, that's it. The team starts playing terribly. Not terribly, but as in they kind of go off a cliff a little bit. And then he ends up leaving. So he signed, I think, an extension last year, I think it was. So he's looking to stay longer term. But they're going to stick with him. They're going to really put faith in him, I know, because he's done a lot at the club and he's really transformed them. But they're not, well, they're sitting at 7th at the moment. I mean, Arsenal already 6 points ahead of them. Man City are 5 points ahead. I mean, there's already a gap starting to open up, and it's only been 6 games. So, I mean, Ash, I'll ask you first. I mean, do Liverpool need to be worried, Liverpool fans, or is it a question of, they're going to adapt with Nunez and, they'll adapt and it'll finally come good at some point in the season. They will compete for some type of silverware.
I think Liverpool are just in a very strange situation, and I'm from the outside struggling to kind of put my finger on what's going wrong, and because there haven't necessarily been major changes in the transfer window. Obviously, the main one was Mane leaving and Nunez coming in. I didn't necessarily think that would have a seismic effect on Liverpool, but it seems like that may have been a big mistake. Mane going, but I am struggling to actually pinpoint what is going wrong. Whereas like with Chelsea, for example, I think you only really need to watch Chelsea, right? They're lacking that striker who puts the ball in the back of the net, lacking a bit of robustness in midfield. But when I watch Liverpool, they still dominate games, but they've lost, I think, that same kind of intensity that they had when that sort of front three of Mane, Salah, and Firmino were firing for several years. And perhaps it's just that's the thing. Time has passed. A lot of them are aging, and they just don't have that same kind of zip about them that they had for several years. Maybe it's just a case that that's the passage of time, and eras come and go, and maybe we're seeing sort of coming towards the end of the Klopp era. I don't know. I mean, I still look at their squad and see so much quality all over the pitch, and that makes me think they'll come good, they'll get back on track, and whether or not they have a successful season. I mean, last season they obviously missed out on the Prem, got both domestic cups. Whether or not they'll have as good a season, it's not looking necessarily that way. But yeah, I find it hard to doubt Liverpool, just because of that quality they have all over the pitch, and obviously such a top manager. But yeah, overall, my overall kind of takeaway is just a bit confused.
yeah, makes 2 of us. Josh, what's your thoughts?
It's an interesting one, I have to say. It is a bit of a conundrum, but I'm leaning towards, and obviously with my Man United hound, but I will remove it. And I think they're in trouble, and I think they're in trouble because just like Chelsea, their engine room is in need of dire help. Thiago's injury prone, so he'll come back and get injured again. Milner and Henderson are a couple years older. They panicked bought last week with getting Arthur. They need creativity centrally. And I think, I don't know how, but somehow maybe it's the arrogance sometimes of maybe the media of Liverpool or even within the club. But to let go of Mane and believe Nunez was going to be enough is baffling for me, because someone like Luis Diaz, he looks good, but you look at his numbers. I know he scored tonight. Look at his numbers. Look at his goals and assists compared to Mane's. I know they're two completely different players in terms of quality, but you can't kind of replace that. You kind of have to be different and get Nunez, but you need more. And I think, to be fair to Klopp, I think Klopp reminds me of, and this is going to be scary to say, I'm actually not going to say it, but I'm going to say Fergie for a second. But FFG are like Glazers in the sense they don't actually put money into the club that much. You know, Chelsea have been quite fortunate. It's a good example. Man City, where you go on 200 and 250 million spree in the window. Liverpool bought Nunez and that's it. I know they bought Carvalho and Diaz, but they need an overhaul. And we talk about the 7 years of Klopp under Dortmund and Liverpool. I think a lot of the players are end of their tenure, end of an era. You look at Van Dijk, he looks lazy tonight. You look at Joe Gomez, isn't it good? Trent's never been able to defend, but players like Robertson, Henderson, Salah, who've been, the top players of Liverpool, all out of form. I mean, you've got a squad of other than Luis Diaz not performing, you're in trouble. And I think, when does that come from? And I was looking at the Chelsea game, I'll be honest with you. I was looking at the Chelsea game thinking, under Tuchel, Liverpool can go there and make a statement, and then Chelsea in trouble. But it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea now under Potter, whoever goes there, and Liverpool, we're still scratching our heads because they're easy to play against. They've got a high line, you sit deep, and you just break. It isn't quite difficult. So it's scary to even think they were 2 games away from a quadruple. And now I think they're in a real battle for top 4. Real battle for top 4. I really, really do, because it's a season like no other. We have top 6 clubs have 6 Premier League games in October, 3 European games. That's 9 games, and already we're talking about injury problems. I remember when we beat them, it was a talk about how many players are out. It's not going to get any easier with the World Cup break. It isn't going to get any easier. You look at Arsenal, United, more say Arsenal and Tottenham. We're forgetting as well. Tottenham and City. Those 3 look good. Forget United for one side, but those 3 look good. So even if you put United and Chelsea to one side, Chelsea's done the right thing, I think, with pulling the trigger on Tuchel, because at the end of the day, your season's getting going, and Liverpool not look good at all. This time last week, wasn't it having a late winner, 97 minutes, I forget, Newcastle. And the only team they've beaten outside that, let's be honest, have been the poorest team in the Premier League in Bournemouth, and they showed that with a 9-0. I'd be very worried to be for Liverpool, because right now, if it was going to change, I know it's only 6-7 games, it would have, in my opinion. You would have seen something. But let's see Wolves and Chelsea. Let's see. Jury's still out for me, but yeah, he looks frustrated, doesn't he, Klopp, at times? He's always moaning. It wasn't Fulham, the dry pitch opening day of the season, and then it was Palace. It was like Nunez, and I'm not sure for Nunez. I do believe only Liverpool can buy a player for that amount of money, and everybody's like, oh, it's going to be a sure thing. No way. You've lost someone who's been guaranteed well in the Premier League in Mane. So I don't know. When they were bad under lockdown, I always believed they'll get top 4, and they did in the end. Even when they lost their 6 home games this year, I just feel like there's a lot of variables within their own squad in the midfield. I think other clubs are going to be better around them, and losing Mane, I can't believe they lost him. I have to be honest with you. I just think that 11 of Fabinho, even Fabinho looks quite leggy. I don't know. I agree with Ash, like maybe they're going to come good, but I just can't see where. And maybe that's me foolish. Maybe I'm being foolish, and maybe it's my United hat on. But at the moment, I just don't see where. And to be honest, they've given us evidence over the last few years they'll kick on, but that's the intensity. They lack that intensity. There's no heavy metal football. I agree with Ash. When you watch Chelsea, you can see where the problems are up front. With Liverpool, I'm just thinking, well, these guys going to blow you away. It doesn't matter if they've got Milner, Henderson. He's still got Salah. He's still got Carvalho's come in. He's still got Van Dijk. He's still got Allen. He's still got Robinson. These are best players in their positions in world football, and they're getting done. And they shouldn't really be beating Newcastle. Fulham could have beaten them. As every game this year they could have lost and have lost, other than Bournemouth, and that's a worry. And the Wolves Chelsea be very telling. That Chelsea game, I'm looking forward to it, because I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be telling for the season, I tell you.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be interesting. I think, the heavy metal football is a good question. It's a good point that, we haven't really seen that. I think it's because they are struggling to get to grips with. They're going to have to play a slightly different style with Nunez. They never had a focal point. Firmino was very fluid with Salah and Mane. They would switch positions. Nunez isn't going to do that. He's not going to shift to the left wing or right wing. He's going to be your number 9. He's a Lewandowski, right, type player. So that's going to be interesting to see. They don't have that kind of fluidity in the front line. So I think Diaz, as you said, has been pretty good, and he will continue to be good on the left-hand side. I think Salah has to adapt because he was used to, I think he ended up playing number 9 for a lot of the season last year because, Firmino and Mane would kind of shift and he would then play up top. He isn't particularly renowned for tracking back, picking up his men. And then obviously on that side, you've got Trent, and they've been found out a lot of times down that right-hand side. So I'm wondering whether that is going to be an issue for the rest of the season, but we shall see. But thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys being on as always. We'll keep it relatively short this week, and we'll be back next week for another episode as well. And I'm sure with a lot more things to discuss. But yeah, appreciate it, guys. If you haven't done so already, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you are new. And also, please do check us out on podcast platforms as well and leave a rating or review. Thanks very much, guys. Ash and Josh, appreciate it. See you guys very soon as well. And we'll see you for the next podcast.
Yeah, take care, guys. Take care.